at the expense of the taxpayers. In other words, when he was in the Senate, he accused him of just buying things that were unnecessary, or passing laws or voting for things that cost a lot of money that were unnecessary. He accused him of being a spendthrift, an impulsive buyer, as Callie said, so to speak. In retaliation, so to speak, Kennedy accused Nixon of giving lip service in 3 specific areas. Okay, Kennedy accused Nixon of giving lip service in 3 specific areas. Now, I know this is a new generation, but does anybody know what the old thought process of lip service might be? Not kissing your girlfriend. What's lip service? Anybody want to guess on that? What did Nixon mean when Kennedy mean when he accused Nixon of giving lip service in 3 areas? Yeah, if I say to you, I'm going to guarantee you that I'm going to work with you to get you an A in here, and then I let you get a C. All I've done is give you lip service. I've just told you what I'm going to do, and I didn't follow through. Now, what 3 areas that Kennedy accused Nixon of giving lip service to basically had to do with Eisenhower's record as president. Okay? And here are the 3 things that Kennedy accused Nixon of giving lip service to. 1, increasing the minimum wage. In other words, he said, you and Eisenhower talked about that for 8 years, never did it. He just gave everybody lip service on it. Promised, didn't come through. Raising the minimum wage. Second one was expanding school construction. What does that mean?
Building more schools.
Building more schools, having the government pay for the expansion of new schools. So building school construction was another area in which Kennedy accused Nixon of only giving lip service to. And the third one, which is dear to me, and I've got some great stories to tell you about this, was providing medical care for the elderly. Because there was no such thing as Medicare and Medicaid at this time in history. John Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson become the champions of that. But we'll talk about it later too. So the 3 areas in which Kennedy accused Nixon of giving lip service to the American people were 1, increasing the minimum wage, 2, expanding school construction, and 3, providing medical care for the elderly. So when these 4 debates were over, what was the big question in everybody's mind? Because we're competitive. What?
Who's going to win?
Who won? Yeah, come on, we're a competitive nation. The big question in everybody's mind is who won these debates? So who do you turn to in this case to find out the answer to that? Historians. Okay, people that study those types of things. So here's what historians said on the question of who won the great debates, the 4 debates. They said there was no clear winner. But Kennedy probably gained more from the great debates than Nixon did. So according to historians, there was no clear winner in these great debates, but they would all agree that Senator Kennedy probably gained more from the debates than Nixon. And I'm going to give you some examples of this. You write down what you think you need to. I've already got about 6 specific reasons why Kennedy gained more. And they're all seem kind of, some of them might seem kind of silly to you. Okay? Number 1. Kennedy's charm, poise, and good looks came into everyone's home that watched on national television. Number 1. Kennedy's charm, poise, and good looks came into everyone's home. Television was huge. Kennedy he had good charm, he had good poise, and he was kind of a good-looking guy in comparison to presidents before, such as Eisenhower and Truman and Franklin Roosevelt. Number 2, in those days, TV was black and white, and the background during the debates was gray. That's what they stood in front of. Kennedy, number 2, dressed in a dark suit against a gray background, whereas Nixon dressed in a light suit that actually blended into the back, and at times it looked like, I'll show you a video tomorrow of it, looked like all you could see was his head, because his suit blended in so well with the background. Kennedy was smart. He had people helping. He wore a dark suit against a gray background, whereas Nixon wore a light suit against a studio background of gray, which just, he didn't look as good. That's another reason why historians think Kennedy gained more. This is kind of an interesting one. In 1960, number 3, Kennedy chose to wear makeup, which men didn't do at the time. Nixon thought it was kind of sissy, so to speak, and he refused. And he looked really pale on television compared to Kennedy, who accepted the makeup. Now, if you get on television, men and women wear certain types of makeup, so you stick out on the, on the screen better. Kennedy said, "Yeah, I'll do that." Nixon said, "I'm not doing that." So Kennedy looked better. He stuck out better personally as well. So Kennedy chose to wear makeup that was offered for TV appearances, whereas Nixon politely refused and had a real pale look to him. 4, Nixon was suffering from a virus at the time of the debates, and the fact that he was already looking pale compared to the fact that he looked even more pale because he didn't put on any makeup, he gave it a sickly appearance. Okay? Matter of fact, when you look at the video, when he was talking, you could see him sweating on his face, and it gave him a real sticky appearance. He just didn't look very healthy. If he'd probably taken the makeup, even though he was sickly with the virus, he would have looked better. But on top of not taking the makeup, he was sickly, he was suffering from a virus, and he looked very, very pale, and he was even sweating. You could tell in his face, you can see it on the video, where he's sweating. And when people sweat, they look nervous, and they just don't present themselves as well. And sometimes what you say maybe doesn't come across as well. Okay, number 5. Kennedy handled the questions with an expert ability. He handled the questions with an expert ability. So what does that undercut one of the criticisms? That he can answer the questions very, very well.
Expertise.
His expertise. Thank you very much, Brianna. So number 5, Kennedy's handling of the questions undercut that criticism about his youth and inexperience. Okay? He really nailed the questions. Didn't even hesitate. Nixon didn't handle them quite as well. And the 6th and final reason why historians will say that Kennedy probably gained more from the debate than Nixon was Kennedy's showed a great sense of humor, or another term for that is wit. He showed a great sense of humor or wit. Kennedy did very well in this his whole life, and Americans fell in love with that so much that they began to refer to Kennedy's humor, good sense of humor, as the Kennedy wit, which is on your ID sheet. Now you might think that's kind of silly, but I'm gonna tell you. Now I'm gonna take an example of his wit. Now this isn't gonna have you rolling over laughing. It's not like a joke, but this is the type of guy he was. So he's speaking on the campaign trail, and he's in Wisconsin. What's Wisconsin famous for? But what's that come from? Which comes from dairy farming, right? So what do you have to do in Wisconsin? Every day you have to get up in the morning, you have to milk the cows, blah, blah, blah. So he gets introduced to speak at some people in Wisconsin. It's kind of a brisk, chilly morning. And he stands up at the podium and he says, "As the cow said to the farmer, thanks for the nice warm hand on such a cold morning." Okay? Not hilarious, but I mean it caught people's attention, right? Okay? They gave him a nice ovation, and he stands up and he says, "As the cow said to the farmer, thanks for the nice warm hand on such a cold morning." That's the kind of wit he had. Now, you think that's stupid, don't you? Well, Bill Adler didn't think it was stupid. Let me just show you something here. Bill Adler, a newspaper reporter, was so wound up about how great Kennedy was in his wit that he wrote a book called The Kennedy Wit. And he made a lot of money. This is a bestseller. And it's just got places and things that Kennedy said during his campaign and during his presidency. That damn Adler sold so many books called The Kennedy Wit that he wrote a sequel called More Kennedy Wit. And he sold this like crazy. Just sold it all over the country. And these are original books that Bill Adler wrote just on the wit of John F. Kennedy. Okay? And you'll hear more about that later. Okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about the end of the campaign and some really crucial last-minute breaks that Kennedy got. Because this is going to be the closest election in American history to this point once we get to it. Anybody have any questions at all? Fine job.
Where
Yes?
was the Republican National Convention?